Hello guys, this is the sixth lecture in our JavaScript series. So in this series, we have seen how to build a basic JavaScript website, how to deploy it on iOS, what are variables, lexical scoping, closures, etc. What are functions, what are strings, what are arrays, and this video is about loops. So in this lecture, I'm going to tell you about various loops that JavaScript has, that is for loop, various variations of for, while loop, do while loop, and then we'll see how to use these loops on arrays, strings, object parameters, and then finally I'll also tell you a few array iterator methods. So in the last lecture, I told you that I'll be covering the array iterator methods in the next video, that means this video. So it is just to highlight the point that you can do everything that an array iterator method does with basic looping as well. But iterator methods are only more efficient, and that's why people use them. Okay, so let's get started. Let us start with understanding what are loops. So loops means, first of all, let us understand what are iterables. So iterable means anything that can be looped. Okay, so types of iterators in iterables in JavaScript are arrays, strings, and object properties. Now let us see them one by one. Types of loops in JavaScript are for loop, various versions, various variations of this for, like for off, for in, for each, and then while loop and do while loop. In all of these loops, you can use break statement or continue statement. So break keyword will do what? A break is a statement in itself. So it's a keyword which is a statement in itself. For example, in English, we have run. Run can be used as a single word, or it can also be used as a statement or a sentence. Okay. So similarly, break is a statement in itself. And same goes for continue. So what break does is it breaks the entire loop, whereas continue keyword will break one cycle of the loop, but the loop will continue with the next cycle. Okay, cycle in a loop is also called as iteration. Okay, so either you say cycle or iteration, whereas loop in all is a collection of all these cycles. Okay, so continue keyword will continue the loop while breaking the cycle, and break keyword breaks the cycle as well as the loop. Okay, so let us see that with an example. Let us say that I'm having this for loop. So let me take some time to explain you what is a for loop. In for loop, this is the initial value with which you need to start. This is the condition, and then this is the increment or any operation that you have to perform before starting the next iteration. Okay, so the first iteration, the first cycle will get executed with these initial values. Okay, before starting, it will check this condition. This condition is checked before starting any iteration. Okay, whether it is the first iteration or subsequent iterations, condition is always checked. But this increment will be done only for the subsequent iterations. For the first iteration, it will continue with this initial value, and that's the reason why we give this initial value. Okay, so the first cycle will start with I equal to 0. It will check this condition. So this condition is true, and that's why the cycle will continue. Cycle is from this brace to this brace. Okay, so what it says is, if I is equal to 3, then break the loop. Otherwise, means not otherwise also, just after that there is another statement saying console out whatever is the value of I. So in the first cycle, that is the first iteration, I is equal to 0, so 0 will be consoled out. Okay, second cycle also 1 will be consoled out, third cycle 2 will be consoled out. Okay, but after that, before starting the fourth cycle, it will increment I by 1, right? So I will become 4. So is this condition true? Yeah, the condition is true. So it has entered the cycle. But in the cycle, we have checked whether I is equal to 3. Yeah, here I is equal to 3. So in this case, what will happen? It will break the loop. So not only the cycle, but also the loop will get broken. So no subsequent loops, no subsequent cycles will be called after this. Okay, so on the console you have only seen 0, 1, 2. You do not see anything after I is equal to 3. This I equal to 3 cycle started, but within that cycle itself we have said that break the loop. So the next statement is also not called. That means the cycle is broken. This subsequent statements within the cycle are not called. That means the cycle is broken. And also the loop is broken because it does not increment I by 1, I becomes 4. So if I is equal to 4, then this condition is false, and that's why it should not break the loop and it should continue. But that does not happen, because once break statement comes, it breaks the entire loop. So increments won't happen, next next cycle won't continue, all the subsequent cycles will be abandoned. Okay, so this is what break keyword does. Now I have given an example of using break within for. You can use break in all the variations of for, like for in, for off, for each, and you can also use it in while loop or do while loop. Okay, now similarly continue statement, everything that I said about break holds true in the case of continue statement as well. Like it can be used for loop, all the variations of for, within while loop, within do while loop. But the difference here is that whenever this condition is true, this continue is called, and whenever this continue is called, it only breaks the cycle, it does not break the entire loop. So after this, once again I will be incremented and the next cycle will start. Okay, within that cycle, once again you will check whether this condition is true. If true, then once again continue is called. That means that cycle is abandoned, next cycle is called. Okay, so this is how it continues. So here if I is equal to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then this consoling out won't happen, because the cycle is broken, but the loop continues. So only for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 they are not printed, but all the other numbers are printed here. Okay, now let us see how to iterate using these loops. How to iterate all the various iterables. So what are the three types of iterables I told you? Arrays, strings, and object properties. So first of all, let us see how to iterate arrays. So we will try to iterate arrays using all the types of loops. So the first type of loop that we are taking is for loop. So let us say motor companies is an array of strings, and we are trying to iterate it using this for loop. So this is how you will iterate it. So I is equal to 0, and I will keep on incrementing until I reaches the length of this array. Length of this array is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. So as long as I is less than 5, the loop will continue. So how to console out things? So array into bracket index. Okay, we saw how to display the elements of an array in the last lecture itself. We saw that. So this is how you will display it. Okay, this is how to use a for loop. Now you can use a for in loop. So now let us see the three variations of for, that is for in, for off, and for each. So when you say for in, it actually is an index over here. It is not the value, it is the index. Whereas if you use for off, then it is actually the value. Okay, so an easy way to remember it is in means index and off means one of the array elements, so it is off. Okay, so if you use for in, then you should be using it like an index. So you should be saying that the array into bracket the index. Okay, this is how you'll be using it. But if you use for off, then it is actually an element of the array, so you can use it directly. Okay, this is the difference between for in and for off. Easier way than this is for each, because for each you can use like this. This is a callback. So this is a callback function. The callback function takes three parameters: value, index, and array. So here I'm using only value. So I have named that argument, the first argument, as car. Okay, I can also name this argument as value because it is value. Okay, and how to use it? I can use the value as it is, but if I want to use an index, then I can use it too. See, I can use value, index, and array, all three of them. I can use index also, I can use array also, and I can use the value as well. Okay, so this is how you can do it. So basically for each came because where to use for in, where to use for of. If you are getting confused, then just remember to use for each. For each gives you luxury to use value, index, as well as the original array. Okay, so use for each as far as possible. Then uh, how to use a while loop. So no one uses while loop nowadays, but if you still want to use it, then this is how it is used. So while loop has a condition given over here, and the increment has to be done within the cycle. Means you need to increase the index within the iteration itself. So increment has to be done within the iteration, that means within the cycle. This is the cycle again, from this brace to this brace. Okay, so point to be noted here is, in for loop you can give the iteration as a part of the for statement itself, but in while loop you have to do the increment yourself. Second thing is, in for loop you gave the initial value in the for statement itself, but here you have to give the initial value at the starting or maybe before the while loop starts. So while statement only has the condition. Okay, so that is why normally people don't use while nowadays, people use for. Okay, so people use just for or for each, that's it. Most people use only for each. Okay, so you don't need to remember all of these things, you just need to remember how to use for each. So just this slide you need to remember. Okay, okay, so that was about while loop. So while loop will get executed as long as this condition is true. So even for the first iteration also it will check the condition. Okay, but there might be a situation where you want to execute the loop or execute this cycle or iteration at least once. In those cases you use do while loop. So do while loop basically executes this once, and then it checks the condition for the next cycle. Okay, for the next cycle it will check the condition, but initially for the very first time it will execute these statements. So these statements will get executed at least once. For that you use do while loop. Okay, again the increment has to be within the iteration, and initial value has to be given before the do while statement. Okay, now I told you there are three types of iterables: arrays, strings, and object properties. So we have covered arrays, we saw how to loop them using all the various loops. Now we will see how to loop strings. Okay, so the way to loop strings is, let us say using for loop. So this is how you will do it. I is basically the index. Okay, now when you say name of one, then it is actually one is the index, so it is m. Okay, because a string is basically an array of characters, so the character coming at index 1 is actually m. Okay, now this character array can be iterated upon, right? It can be looped, right? And that's how we are using this for loop. So I is used as an index and it is used like this, right? Similarly, in foreign loop also, when you say this is basically an index, so again use it like an index. Then for of also, this is the letter, that means this is actually the character. So name is a character array, right? So its element is basically a character. So in the first iteration it will be a, in the second iteration it will be m, third iteration I, and fourth iteration it will be t. Okay, so this is how you can use for of loop. And for each loop can also be used, as we can see over here, or you can use for each loop with value, index, and array also. I have not given that example, but you get the idea now. Now let us see looping a string using while loop. So here what you're doing is, this is the initial condition, this is the condition. You're saying name.length. Name is basically a string, so you're calling the length property of the string, which is actually 4 in this case. So as long as the index is lesser than 4, it will continue the execution of this cycle. So in the cycle you're saying display name into bracket index. So here you're using the index operator of a string. Okay, and this is how you use it. Similarly, in a do while loop, this is how you will use a do while loop. You give an initial condition, means initial value. In the while you give the condition, and increment is done within the iteration. Okay. Now, looping the object properties. So I told you there are three types of iterables. Arrays, we have seen that. Strings, we have seen that. Now the third type of iterable is object properties. So let us use object properties. Iterating or looping the properties of an object using for in loop. So here, just remember that you can use only one type of loop for iterating the properties of an object, and that loop is for in loop. You cannot use while, you cannot use do while, you cannot use for off, you cannot use a basic for also. You have to use or you cannot use for each also. So you have to use for in. That's the only kind of loop which is used for looping the properties of an object. So here, what are the properties of the object? Basically, I like to show this to you in working. So I'll just copy this and I'll paste it in my IDE. I'll remove these spaces, and then let us see what is the result. The result is Amit, Shirasao, and 38. Okay. So these are what? These are the values of the properties of the object, which is person. Okay. So how did I loop through those objects properties? So I have said for whatever is the property index in person, that means whatever is the object. So I have to use for in for this case. So this is an index, right? So when you say person of 0, it should basically give me Amit. Okay, so you try this anyways. I'm just commenting this out. Even if I say here console.log person of 0, it should give me, oh, it doesn't give me anything, right? So but within this foreign statement, what do I get? Out of person index, I get 0. So person of 0 here, I can use it very well. So I don't know why this is happening, but this is how it happens. So if you have to iterate through the properties of any object, then this is a very standard way of doing it. Everyone normally does it this way. Okay, so that's why I gave this example. Okay, so this is how you loop through arrays, strings, and object properties. So this is how you loop through all the iterables in JavaScript. Now let us see array iterator methods. So as I told you earlier, array iterator methods, it's not very compulsory that you should be using array iterator methods. You can do looping using basic loops also, but array iterator methods are a little more efficient. They are efficient with respect to memory as well as processor. So they are memory efficient as well as processor efficient. That means they'll take lesser amount of memory and they take lesser amount of processor efforts. So processor can process it faster, so they are faster. So they take lesser memory and they are faster. Okay, and that's the reason why they are said to be efficient. And since they are efficient, more efficient as compared to the basic loops, most people use array iterator methods. So there are various types of array iterator methods. First type is the conditional kind of methods, which will basically give you true or false. So if every element in the array satisfies a certain condition, then this every method is going to return true. And if some of the elements in an array satisfy a certain condition, then it is said to be this sum will give you true. Okay, so let us see every first of all. So this is a numbers array. Okay, it's a numeric array. It has various numbers. Now I want to check whether it is positive, whether a certain element in the array is positive, or whether a certain element in the array is even. Okay, so the way to do it is this is the callback. This is just a callback within every and within every method. I'm using this callback. So callback is what? Callback is just a function. This function takes one parameter, and this parameter is given an argument name as n, and I'm just checking whether n is greater than 0. So here every method will basically use this callback as an iteration, okay, as a cycle, okay. And in the cycle, this n will be the element of the array, okay, and it will keep on iterating through this array, and this n will keep on changing from 450 to 23 to 65 to 35, okay. It will keep on changing it with every iteration, okay. And in every iteration, the cycle, the method, the block which is getting called, that is actually this is positive. So whatever is given over here, that is return n is return whether n is greater than 0, that is getting called, okay. So if the result for every element is true, then this every statement will return true. So this numbers dot every into bracket is positive. This thing will be true if every element is such that this callback returns true for it, okay. For every element, if this callback is returning true, then only this every method will be returning true. And that's why let us see this here. All the elements are positive, and that's why this statement is getting consoled out, okay. This is not getting consoled out. But in this case, all the numbers are not even. For example, 23 is not even, 65 is not even, 35 is not even, 23 is not even, okay. So due to these four elements of the array which are not even, this statement is getting called. Why? Because this every is going to return false, because all of the elements are not returning true for this callback, okay. And that's why this statement is getting consoled out. Got the idea? This is what this is how every statement can be used. Now this is just a callback, right? This is positive is a callback, right? Now callback can be used with value index and array as well. So that is my next example. So callback can be used. I've used the word compare function, but more academic word over here would be callback function. So let me just correct the value. Let me call it as the callback function. Callback function. Similarly, I think in some also I gave a same slide, and here also it should be callback function. Okay, so how to use those value index and array parameters? So I'm using it like this. I'm saying that I'm using value over here. If you want to use, you can use the index as well. So for example, here, let us say that my condition is that I want to check whether those elements of this array which are at a positive index, or sorry, which are at an even index, whether those numbers are positive or not. Okay, so that is why I've given the name of this callback as number on an even index is positive. Okay, so if this number, now for the first number, is the index even? No, it is not even, so it will anyways return true. But in the case of this number, minus 23, the index is actually even, and that's why this condition is true, and then it will check whether the value is positive. If the value is positive, then only it will return true, otherwise it will return false, okay. And then I've used this callback within every. So every element of this array should satisfy this condition, and then only this every is going to return true. So in this case, what is consoled out, that every number at even indices is not positive. Now we have seen every. Similarly, let us see sum. The only difference between every and sum is that sum says that even if some of the elements satisfy the condition, then also I'll return true. And every says that all the elements should satisfy the condition, then only the every returns, the every statement returns true. Got the idea? So that is the difference between sum and every. Okay. Sum can also have a callback which has value index and array parameters. So that is about every and some. Those were conditional array iterator methods. Now the next array iterator method that we are going to see is array.from. So suppose you have a string and you want to derive an array out of that string, then you use that this method, which is array.from. So let us see that in action. So let's say that we have a name variable, which is basically a string, and we want to derive an array of characters out of this string. Then we can just say array.from into bracket whatever that string is. Now instead of doing this, I can also write array.from into bracket some actual string. That is also possible. The effect that you get is the same as the effect of name.split. So in the last lecture we saw that strings can be split, or that kind of thing. So and not in the last lecture, last to last lecture we saw this, right? So basically we must have seen this in part 4 of this tutorial series. Okay, part 4 we must have seen strings, right? So here I told you that dot split method is there. It also gives you the same effect. It also gives you an array of characters. Okay, so alternatively you can use all of them. So I'll explain it to you. Let me just copy this code. I'm copying this, I'm pasting it in the IDE. Yeah, I'm replacing all of these things. Okay, and yeah, I'm getting this array. Okay, this is method, this is first way of doing it. So I'm writing here first way of doing it. Then there is another way of doing it, the second way. Second way of doing it. See, I'll do one thing, I'll keep this here. So the second way of doing it is I can just write here Amit Shirasao. That is also okay. It will give him the same effect. Third way of doing it is instead of saying array.from, I'll just say that this name dot split, and I don't give a separator. That means it will split all of them into individual character arrays. Okay, so these are the various methods in which you'll get the same effect. Okay, so I'll just copy this and I'll give it to you in the slide so that you remember that all these methods will, all these ways will basically give you the same result. Okay, result is the same. So should I be giving this screenshot? What do you say? Okay, I hope this will be better for you. Okay. Okay, guys, so that is how you use array.from. Then another array iterator method. So how many array iterator methods have you seen till now? The conditional kind of methods, which are every and some, and the second is to derive array from a string, which is array.from. Now the third array iterator method that we are going to see is array.keys. So what does it do? It gives you something like this, so whatever is a fruits dot keys, you can derive an array out of it and then you can print it like this. So this is also a tricky thing, so I'll try to show it to you with an live example. Okay, so remember, this is going to display 0 1 2 3 because there are these many indices in the array. So you must be wondering, what does this return? So let us console out only this part. Okay, so I'll say console.log just this part. So see what I get. I get an iterator. Okay, so what does an iterator do? What is an iterator? Okay, so iterator means suppose iterator means something which we will see this in the next slide in detail. I haven't created a slide for that. I will create another slide for you. iterator needs to be explained properly. Okay, and let us see that. Let us see it in live example. Okay, it gets you an iterator of keys from an array. Okay, so how do you use an iterator? So this is an iterator basically. Okay, this is an iterator, so I'll just call it as iterator. Okay, now how do you use this iterator? I'm just consoling it out. I'm commenting it out. If I say iterator dot next, then I get something. I'm consoling this out, means console dot log this thing. Okay, so what do I get? See, I get an object having value and done equal to false. Then what if I call this again? I call this again. I get value is equal to 1. Here value is equal to 2. So what is value? Value is basically, see, this is what I've mentioned in the slide also, that array.keys actually returns you an iterator. It is iterator of what? It is the iterator of keys from the array. That means the indices from that array. Okay, so you see the indices. Now let us say I go next, so I'll see 3 also, but beyond 3 there is no index, right? So 0 1 2 3, right, 4 is not there. Now what if I go next? Then what will happen? The value will be undefined, and done is equal to true. Until now done was equal to false. Okay, if I keep on going like this, then every time I'll get undefined, 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 and done is equal to true. Okay, so what I'm saying is I should be using it like this to show those elements. Got the idea? If I use it once again, then it won't show anything, it will be undefined. Why? Because this itself will have value equal to undefined, so this itself will be undefined. So if I write here undefined, then what do I get? I don't get anything, right? I don't get anything. That's what I'm getting here. It's undefined. So fruits of undefined is undefined. So this is how you do it. I'll just copy this, but you cannot loop through it. As far as I can see, you cannot loop through it. So this is how it is, and I'll also paste this thing for you, because this is the result. Okay, now this is how you use keys. So what does keys do? Keys gives you the indices. Okay, so keys gives you an iterator of keys of the array, that is the iterator of indices in the array. What if you want the actual values? For that you need to use array.entries. In entries, what will you get? You will actually get index and the value in the form of another array. So basically it's going to return you uh, an array of 4 arrays. Okay, and each of these 4 arrays will have 2 elements. First element will be the index, second element will be the value. Okay, so this is what you get out of it. So you again get an iterator, you don't get an array. So you don't get array of arrays, you get an iterator. So to get an array from that iterator, you can use array.from. So array.from can be used to get an array from a string or array from an iterator. Okay, so you can get the array from this iterator, and then you can console it out if you want. I think I can use this example. Again, I'll do one thing. I'll just duplicate it. Yeah, let's try to use it as it is. Okay, and let us not show. So if I want to show all those elements using this iterator, then let's see how we can do that. So this is going to give me an iterator, right? So I'll just say const iterator equal to something. Okay, we have fruits.entries. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll console out fruits into bracket iterator, or let me just console out iterator.next first so that we get an idea. Iterator.next. So what will this return? It will return us this thing. The value is an array which contains 0 and banana. Okay, and this. So what I'll do is I will just say this dot value. Okay, so what will I get? I'll get the array. Then this value of 0, what is that? Or it is 0, and value of 1, it is actually the banana, right? So I will just console out this 4 times. Okay, so this is how you can use iterator.next to display those things. So I'll give you this thing also, like one of the slides. Okay, so purposely I've shown it to you that it basically returns an iterator. That is the main thing. And just to highlight that thing, I've given you all these examples. Okay, and yeah, so we have seen array.keys, array.entries. Okay, now let us go to the next thing, that is array.width. So what does that do? It is the ECMAScript 2023, the very latest one. If after this also ECMAScript 2024 has come, but it's almost the latest version of ECMAScript. So it says if you ever want to change uh, a single element within an array, then you can do it with statement. You don't require to use splice, because splice is quite an overdue, you can say. It's like killing a fly with a cannon. So it's too much of work using splice. So if you want something lighter than that, then you can use with. Always remember, JavaScript can be understood better if you understand English better. If your grammar at English is good, then your JavaScript is also good. Because especially ECMAScript uses very good English grammar. So if your English grammar is good, your JavaScript will also be good. And that's why I'm conducting these lectures in English. Because you'll learn a thing or two about English as well. It's very, very important for being a good JavaScript developer. Because ECMAScript, see, for example, I told you the method names, the newer method names of ECMAScript standard are like too sorted, too reversed, something like that, right? So your English needs to be good. You cannot say too reversed. The correct grammar would be too reversed with an ed. Okay, too sorted, you cannot say too sort. No, it should be too sorted, and that's why your English needs to be good if you really want to get to the crux of it. Otherwise, you can still do well in JavaScript. It doesn't make much of a difference. But if you really want to understand why a certain method is called something, then it's better if you understand English well. Okay, now here ECMAScript again uses English. Here it says that original array, you derive a new array from the original array with the element at index 2 as Maruti Suzuki. So what is element at index 2? It is Maruti over here, right? 0 index, 1 index, 2 index, right? Maruti. So you derive a new array from the original array, just replace the element which is at index 2 with this new value. Okay, and of course it returns you a new array. The new array has Maruti Suzuki over here, but the original array is kept the same. Always remember, all the newer methods of ECMAScript keep the original array intact, and they return you a new array by deriving it from the original array. Okay, so this is the trend in ECMAScript. You can say the newer trend is that nowadays the modern methods, they do not disturb or they do not modify the original array. They give you another array. Okay, so this is what it is. So remember two trends in ECMAScript. One is they use very good English, so the method names are correct as per English grammar. And second thing is, all the newer methods keep the original array intact without change. Okay, Then the next, yeah, this is a very good interview question. What is a spread operator? So spread operator can be used for two things. It is used to derive arrays and it is used to derive objects. So spread operator to create an array. So let us say that you already have array 1 and array 2 and you have to club these two arrays into one single array. You have to join the two arrays into one single array, or you have to concatenate the two arrays into one single array. Then you use a spread operator before both these arrays. You separate them by comma and you enclose it within square brackets. This is important. You enclose it within square brackets, so it forms a composite array. If you enclose them within if these are objects, then you can use a spread operator to expand or spread object also. And you know so this is basically an object. Okay, so it can be used on an object as well. Object 1 and object 2, and you can get a composite object out of them. But in this case you have to use a square sorry, you have to use curly braces. Okay, you cannot use a square bracket. Square bracket if you want a composite array out of two arrays, and curly braces if you want to get a composite object out of two objects. Okay, because when you create an array you use square brackets, and when you want to create an object you use curly braces. Okay, so this is how you can remember, and this is how the logic is also this only. This is the logic behind using either square brackets or curly braces. Okay, now let us see the example. Here there are four arrays, and I have to create a composite array out of them. So the composite array should have all the months in them like this. So the way to do it is I'll spread every array with a spread operator. I'll comma separate them and I'll enclose all of them into one square bracket. Okay, and this is how you get the composite array. Similarly, if you want to do it with objects, then let us say this is one object, there's another object, and I want to get a composite object out of both of them. Then you spread both these objects like this, and you enclose them within the curly braces, so you get a composite object. Okay, now remember that this composite object will have all the properties, but the properties won't get repeated. For example, here when it's spreaded old person, the name was Amit, city was Pune, age was 38, and business was YouTube. And then it's spreaded this updated person, which is Nitin Shirasao, name is Nitin Shirasao, city is Mumbai, and age is 33. It does not have business property, so there's no conflict over there. But with name, city, and age, yeah, these properties are there in the other object as well. So when it spreads that object and this new object, one object can have only one property of the same name, right? So what will happen? It will basically override the value of the first object, that whatever I have spreaded, it became a part of this composite object, right? Now when I spread another object within that composite object, then all the properties that got repeated, their values will be overridden. So whatever was the earlier value was what Amit Shirasao, right? Because I had spreaded the first object first, right? After that I spread the second object, so the second object's values will override the first object's values. Means not first object's values but the composite object's values. Got the idea? So this comprehensive updated person or the composite object will have these values. It will have name as Nitin Shirasao, city is Mumbai, age is Pune. So all these things are coming from the updated object, and then business is still that of the old object because it was expanded, and the composite object got this property, and this property was never replaced. Okay, the value of that property was never replaced, so it stays the same. So this is how your composite object will look like. Now these are very important iterator methods. There can be a great interview question about all five of them, especially about map, filter, and reducer. So people often ask the difference between map, filter, and reducer. People won't ask you much about flat map, reduce, right? Because very few people use it, or very few people even know what it is. But I'm covering it so that you are aware. But very few people even know about them. For each, it's normally considered as a loop, so people won't ask much about it. But people will ask about map, filter, and reduce. Okay. So whenever you say array iterator methods, then normally people, by that people mean for each, map, filter, reduce. These are the only array iterator methods that people really care about. They don't care about every, they don't care about some. Okay, when they say array iterator methods, what are array iterator methods? They are expecting an answer like for each, map, filter, reduce. These are array iterator methods. They are not even expecting answer to be, every, some, from, they are not expecting that kind of an answer, or with, they are not expecting that answer. But whenever they say array iterator methods, they mean these four methods: for each, filter, map, and reduce. Okay, so let's see them one by one. For each we have already seen, so I'm not going deeper into it. Okay. Map. Now what is map? Map means whenever you see, whenever you say that this is an array, original array is a array of these five, is an array of these five numbers. Okay. New array, if you want to derive a new array from the original array using map method, then there is this callback. Okay. Now what does this callback do? This callback is from here to here, right? So this callback says that for every element, means you repeat this callback for every, map will repeat this callback for every element, right? And the every element's value will be given over here in n. So n is equal to 1 over here, so it will just multiply n by 2. Okay, so this is how you derive the first element of the new array. Then second element of the old array will be taken, that is 2. It will multiply it by 2, and then it will become the second element of the new array, and so on and so forth. So the new array that you'll get will be of the same length, and all the elements in this new array will be such that they are twice the corresponding element in the older array. Got the idea? So this is how you use a map method. Again, it's a very new method, not very new. It came with ECMAScript 6, I guess. So, it is not very new. ECMAScript 6 came in 2015. So it's not very new. But still, by then the trend was that the original array was kept intact. And that's why this is also a relatively new method, and that's why it keeps the original array intact. It does not change the original array. Okay. Now let us see what is flat map. So flat map is just like, you first flatten the array and then you apply map on it. Okay. So this is a two-dimensional array. What if you flatten it? It will become a one-dimensional array having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in one array. And then you apply this map function over it, which will just multiply each of the elements by 2. So the end result will be an array having 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Okay. Now how do you write flat map? In flat map method, there is a callback which accepts one argument, let us say x, and in x you will be writing x dot map, and inside that there will be another callback which will actually do the mapping. Okay, so actual multiplication by 2 will be done by the second map, the inside map, inner map. Okay, and flat map on the other hand is only saying that you apply this map method on all the elements that are derived from an array which is derived after flattening that particular array. So flat map will first flatten this flatten this array into a one-dimensional array, and then it will apply this map on that array. It will apply a dot map method, this dot map method, which will basically multiply every element by 2. Okay, so this is how it is, and flat map also does not change the original array. Filter. What does filter do? Filter basically filters out some of the elements from this array, okay, based on a condition. That condition is given in this callback. Okay, so what is the condition? The modulus 2, the result should be equal to 0. That means it should be divisible by 2. Means if you divide it by 2, then the return remainder should be equal to 0. That means it should be completely divisible by 2. That means it should be even. Okay, so when I give this callback within this filter method, then what is this callback doing? Whatever you pass, whatever parameter you pass, whatever number you pass to it, it will check whether this number is even or not. If it is even, then it will return true. If it is odd, it will return false. Okay, so filter is having this callback, so it will basically check, it will iterate through all these elements in the original array, and it will return only those elements which satisfy this the condition given in this callback. Okay, so only the even numbers will be returned, and those numbers will become part of this new array. So this new array has only the even numbers out of this original array, and of course the original array is not changed. So this is filter. What did map do? Map changed every element of the original array to derive the new array, whereas filter is not changing any of the elements. It is only picking a few of the elements of the original array, and that picking is done as per this callback. Okay, so this is what filter does. So it filters out the elements within the original array, and it creates a new array out of those filtered elements. Then what is reduce? Reduce basically reduces the entire array into one single output. Okay, so here I'm trying to reduce this entire array into the total of these elements, which is the sum of these elements, and that's why the callback that I've used is something like this. What it will do is it will just sum these numbers. It will add all these numbers together. So here you must have seen that I've used value index array. Okay, in map and in filter also, whatever callback is there, here also I can use a value index array, but I have used only one argument. So this argument is actually value. Okay, if I use two arguments, then it will be value and index. If I use three arguments, then it will be value, index, and array. Okay, so only in case of reduce I have shown it very explicitly, but otherwise even in filter and map also the same thing applies. Wherever there is a callback, you can always have these three parameters passed to it: value, index, and array. Got the idea? Okay, but here there is one more parameter, which is total, and total can even have an initial value as well. So let us see that. So total means what? It is also called as aggregate. The more academic word for it is aggregate. Okay, but aggregate is a difficult word, so I'm using the word total for it. Okay, so total means, aggregate means it is one value which will represent the entire array. Okay, so presently it is starting with 0 because I haven't given any initial value to it, so it's starting from 0. And then I'm saying that with every iteration, in every iteration, what do? You add total equal to total plus value. So this thing means total equal to total plus value. So you add value to the total, and that becomes the value of the total. Got the idea? So this is what you do with every iteration, and this reduce iterates this entire array, and for every iteration the value will be the value of this element, index will be the index of the element, array will be this array, and total is the total aggregate, which is absolutely altogether different outside, and you're just incrementing it by every element one by one. So if reduce iterates through the entire array, then at the end of it you will actually get the total of all these numbers, and that becomes the value which is consoled out. So if you add all these numbers, you'll get 55. Again, the original array is not changed. Okay, now what if I want to give an initial value to this total? Then the way to do it is like this. You give an initial value of, let us say, 20. So now the sum was actually 55, but the original value was 20. So you will get 20 plus 55, so it is 75. Got the idea? So how will you give the initial value? This is your callback, right? This callback, in the reduce I'm giving the callback, but after callback I'll also give the initial value. Okay, so this is how reduce can be used with an initial value of the aggregator. Again, the original array is not changed. Now you can also use reduce for strings. So the way to do it is, let us say this is a string. String is what? String is a character array. Okay, so I'm first getting characters in name, so I'm getting a character array out of it by saying array.from into bracket string. Okay, now what I'll do is array.reduce. So reduce method is there for array. Reduce method is not there for string, and that's why I cannot say name.reduce. I have to first convert it into an array, and then I have to use reduce method. In the reduce method, this is my callback. Okay, so in the callback, what I'm saying is the total, which will be a blank string. Since this is a character array, it will be a blank string. The aggregator will be a blank string, and you are adding one character to it. So at the end of it, you will get Amit Shirasao as a string completely. Got the idea? This is only to demonstrate what a reduce function can do with strings, and that's why I'm showing this to you. Otherwise, you might ask a very basic question that, see, you're such a silly person, you already had name, which was a string. You first converted it into an array and then used a reducer method to convert it back to string. So what difference does it make? Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. It is only for your demonstration. I just wanted to show you how to use reduce over a character array to get a string. Okay. Again, the original array is not changed. What is reduce write? Reduce write means it will start executing it from the right. Of course, I'm using it for strings, but you can also use it for numbers. So if you have a character array, then reduce write will create a string out of it. But if you have a numeric array, then reduce write will create a number out of it, right? An array basically does not have a specific type. So you can have multiple elements of different data types within a single array. So it's actually wrong to think about reduce or reduce write to be working on a specific type of array. It is just working on an array. Reduce iterates the array from left to right. Reduce write iterates the array from right to left. Okay, so if you use a character array with reduce write, then you will get something like your name in reverse. Okay, and of course it does not change the original array, because reduce and reduce write, these methods don't change the original array. So that brings us to the end of today's lecture. We have seen loops in great amount of detail. Just to summarize, we saw what are the various types of iterators. There are three types of iterators: arrays, strings, and object properties. Then we have seen various types of loops. We have tried to iterate all of these iterators using all these loops. Only the object properties cannot be iterated very well using all the loops. You have to use foreign loop for that. But all the other iterators can be iterated using all the loops, all the types of loops. Then we saw the array iterator methods. In array iterator methods, just remember about every sum, and remember about what is the difference between map, filter, and reduce. Okay, that's it. Until next time, Jai Shri Ram.
This is Amit Shirasao, and you're watching Coding.